What are weeds? And what is a weed? As I've travelled across the internet through different plant spaces, I've seen some different ideas about what weeds are, and some misconceptions, and today I wanted to talk about it. G'day avocado enthusiasts and plant friends alike. I have wanted to talk about this topic for a while, and it's something which I care about. So what is a weed? Well, I've seen a number of images like this, and you may have as well, on places like Facebook, which want to talk about different plants not as being weeds, but as being useful and beneficial and something to be protected. And it's an interesting idea, I think. So this one is claiming that dandelions are in fact not weeds. Okay, let's have a look at what it has to say. Now, I am just putting in a little disclaimer here. I haven't looked into the percentages on here. I'm not claiming this as fact. There are some things which are factual on this, but I'm not claiming the whole thing as something which is true. We're just using this as an example of some of the things that you might see around on the internet, which are a little bit confusing and not factual. For example, yes, dandelions do have lots of nutritional benefits. Their roots are often used to make tea. And they are in fact related to sunflowers, as it claims here. But does that make them not weeds? True dandelions are in fact members of the Asteraceae family, which is the same family that sunflowers and daisies come from. There are thousands of plants within this family. Does that make it not a weed? Well, no. And claiming that it's related to sunflowers is not a good argument for it not being a weed, and I'm going to explain exactly why. On some of the plant Facebook groups that I'm a part of, I have seen a number of people send in a photo and ask, is this a weed? And it's really tricky to answer that question because there's no definitive list of plants that are weeds. I complained in one of my previous videos about blackberries and how I don't like them and they're an incredible weed. And I had somebody comment, and I can't find the comment now, and I can't find which video it was, but I had them say that they're not weeds, they're blackberries. And once again, there's no definitive list of plants that are weeds. But there's certainly a misconception that particular plants are weeds, but that's just simply not true. Whilst there are some plants which certainly lend themselves very easily to becoming weeds, there is no list of plants which are in fact weeds, not globally anyway. In a particular area, like my area, Melbourne, Victoria, there are plants which are pretty well universally accepted as weeds. But if I travel to another country, it's going to be a different list. The different plants are going to be on it. There's no definitive list of plants which are weeds. And let me explain why. So what is a weed? If you look up definitions of weeds, and I'm talking about the botanical definition of a weed, you will never ever find a list of plants as an example. And that's because that's not what a weed is. A weed is not one particular plant or a list of plants. So things that I might consider weeds, dandelion, purple oxalis, bindies, they're not universally accepted as weeds. It depends on the context. Let's look at a definition. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, weed is a noun. It means a plant that is not valued where it is growing and is usually of vigorous growth, especially one that tends to overgrow or choke out more desirable plants. There's no definitive list of weeds because that's just not how weeds work. Weeds are just plants that aren't where they ought to be. From an imperialistic perspective, so if we're keeping gardens, thinking about humans controlling the environment around us, gardening, houseplants, a weed is anything that we haven't planted, which we don't want where it is. So if I am growing tomatoes, I'm sure going to pull up anything that's not a tomato in that bed. Anything that's not a tomato in my tomato bed, I consider a weed. It doesn't have to, it could be broccoli. A broccoli could have self-seeded in my tomato plants. And I want to pull it out because at that point in time, that broccoli is a weed. If we look at the environment with more of a stewardship perspective, so that the environment is valuable in its own right, the natural state is a good way for the environment to be, anything that's not endemic to that environment, that ecosystem, is considered a weed. Seeing blackberries growing wild in New Zealand, for example, where they're not native to, they're very invasive, they are overgrowing more desirable plants, the endemic, the native plants to that area, they are weeds. Scotch thistles, for example, are considered to be invasive species in Australia. They're weeds. But if you go to Scotland, where it's the national flower, and they grow wild natively in their ecosystems, it's not a weed at all. So let's revisit this image here. The dandelions are not weeds because they're related to sunflowers and they have all these other benefits. Well, let's just look at this first claim that they're not weeds because they're related to sunflowers. Well, the fact that they're related to sunflowers is true, but knowing about weeds what we do now, that any plant can be a weed if it's in the wrong spot. Sunflowers could certainly be weeds. For example, and never ever ever do this, it would be very irresponsible to do this, but if somebody were to sow sunflower seeds in the Australian bushland, native Australian bush, where sunflowers are not native, and they grow, they are weeds. They're not endemic to the ecosystem, and they're going to be competing with other more valuable, desirable plants. And so they are weeds. So sunflowers in the wrong spot are weeds as well. Any plant in the wrong place can be a weed. It doesn't matter how valuable we think of the plant. If it's in the wrong spot, it's a weed. I just want to revisit this once more because I think this is just hilarious. The fact that it's claiming that dandelions are amazing because they can spread their seeds 5 miles, that makes them incredibly invasive. Yes, it's an incredible feature of the plant, but if you don't want dandelions somewhere and they are not great for the environment, that's very problematic. Dandelions are incredible weeds because they spread so easily. They're on every continent in the world except for Antarctica, where plants don't really grow. It's a real problem trying to get them out of an ecosystem because they're so invasive. I'm not saying that dandelions are a blight and that they should go extinct. No, there is a place for dandelions. They're natural ecosystems. There is a place for them. And they're even a reasonable farmed crop. You know, humans use them. They're useful. The teas are useful. They have a number of medicinal purposes. I'm not arguing for the extinction of dandelions. I'm just arguing that in most cases they are weeds. Same with blackberries. They are a food crop. But if they're growing wild in a place where they're not native, they're no longer a food crop. They are a weed. Let's use mint as another example, which is often a valuable plant, but it is incredibly hard to kill. Once it's in soil, it's almost impossible unless you want to do some dreadful things to that soil. And even then, it's not a guarantee that you're going to kill it. I always grow my mint in pots because I know that once it's in the soil, I'm probably not going to get it out. Any plant in the wrong place is a weed. So what do we take away from this? Should we only grow native or endemic plants? Well, no, I don't think that's the solution. I think that that's impractical and not exactly desirable. I think keeping native environments is really, really important. But I think in my own garden and in my home, it's okay to have plants from different areas. Let's then think about houseplants, for example. Most of the time, they are not native. In fact, most of my plants are from South America, which if they were to go wild, even the more valuable ones, outside in an Australian native ecosystem, they would be weeds and should be eradicated. But in my home, where they are valued, where I have put them intentionally, they're not weeds, they are my plants. Goodness me, even avocado trees, they're native to South America. If they were growing wild or out of control in the Australian bush, I would want them eradicated as well because that's not where they belong. So what does it mean to be responsible with our plants so that we don't promote weeds? The first thing that I like to do is to stay on top of my weed eradication in my own yard. I want to make sure that I don't have dandelions who are going to seed and then litter my community with other dandelions. That's not helpful. The second is to include endemic plants to your yard. That's not just native to your country, that's native to your particular area. And this is great for local and endemic wildlife. We will come and use that how they have, are great for attracting birds and things, whatever is in your local environment. So try and keep some endemic plants. And the third is to be careful when you're visiting other areas that you're not contaminating things biologically. Make sure you're taking your rubbish with you. I know that we might think that it's okay to just throw apple cores into the bush. It'll be okay, they're decomposable, but those seeds are not native. And if we want to be keeping our environments healthy, ecosystems healthy, we need to take our rubbish with us. Now keep in mind that those are just the things that I am doing to ensure that I am not spreading weeds. I am not an expert at this. Keep doing your own research to find out what is best, but keep in mind that any plant can be a weed. It is valuable to keep natural ecosystems the way they are, to eradicate foreign pests, and it's okay to keep different plants, but stay on top of them so they don't go out of control. And that's where I'll leave it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. A little bit different on this channel, but I like to get into these kinds of things as well because I think they're important to understand. If you want to see more avocado content or plant-related things, please do consider subscribing to Scott Grows an Avocado Tree. Make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the future updates. Leave a comment below if you have any thoughts to add to the conversation we're having around weeds. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.
Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree.